Welcome to Reddit Trends, where I share interesting, useful, and inspiring content. Let's explore the world together with the videos I create. An unexpected showdown occurred on a flight when a powerful CEO tried to humiliate a black doctor in front of all the passengers. But what no one could have imagined was the doctor's clever and surprising response, leaving the entire cabin in stunned silence. What really happened next? Let's find out. Don't forget to hit the follow button so you don't miss out on anything new. Thank you for stopping by, and I hope we have an amazing experience together. Dr. Nina Harper leaned back in her first-class seat, the hum of the plane engines soothing after months of relentless work. At 38, Nina was one of the top trauma surgeons at Massachusetts General Hospital, a feat she had fought tooth and nail to achieve. The pressure of being a black woman in a white, male-dominated field never eased, but she had earned her place through sheer determination and unmatched skill. Today, though, she wasn't thinking about surgeries or patients. Today, she was thinking about the vacation waiting for her in Los Angeles, the first real break she had taken in months. As she adjusted her coat, her brown skin reflected the soft cabin lights, and she allowed herself a small smile. This flight was her chance to unwind before she faced another grueling year in the ER. Just as she settled into her seat, a man in his mid-50s approached, his face pinched with frustration. His name tag read Mark Hensley, the CEO of a tech company. Struggling with an oversized carry-on bag, Mark grumbled under his breath, his movements sharp and impatient. "Do you need a hand?" Nina offered kindly, noticing his struggle. Mark glanced at her, his expression turning cold. "I can manage," he snapped, dismissing her with a wave. Taken aback, Nina withdrew her offer, quietly observing as he wrestled with his bag, managing to shove it into the overhead compartment with a huff. She returned to her seat, prepared to let the encounter go. Little did she know, it was only the beginning. As the plane leveled off, Nina pulled out a book, ready to immerse herself in something other than hospital life. But Mark wasn't done making his presence known. He leaned back in his seat, glancing sideways at her. "So, what brings you to first class?" "Business trip," he asked, his tone suggesting surprise that she was there at all. "No, just a vacation," Nina replied, not looking up from her book. Must be nice," he muttered. "I always assumed most surgeons didn't have much time for that." Nina raised an eyebrow but kept quiet. Mark shifted, glancing at her again. "What kind of surgeon are you, anyway?" "Trauma," she said simply. He chuckled, a note of skepticism clear. "Trauma, huh? That's pretty demanding. You must have some help along the way. Family connections, maybe?" Nina's jaw tightened, but she forced herself to remain calm. "No. I worked hard and earned it on my own." Mark gave a slight shrug, as if unconvinced. "Impressive," he said, though his voice carried a hint of disbelief, as if her success didn't quite add up in his mind. Midway through the flight, the calm atmosphere shifted when a commotion erupted a few rows ahead. A passenger collapsed, gasping for air, and the flight attendants rushed to assist. Nina didn't hesitate. Instinct kicked in as she unbuckled her seatbelt and moved swiftly toward the scene. "I'm a doctor," she announced firmly, addressing the nearest flight attendant. "Let me through." The attendants stepped aside, their faces a mix of relief and panic. Nina knelt beside the man, quickly assessing his condition. His face was pale, his breath shallow. Without missing a beat, she diagnosed a heart attack. "Bring me the first aid kit and any medication you have for heart conditions," she instructed, her voice steady and authoritative. A nurse on board joined her, and together they worked swiftly, stabilizing the passenger as best they could in the cramped space. The tension in the cabin was palpable as the minutes ticked by, but under Nina's direction, they managed to keep the situation under control. She monitored his vitals, reassured the passengers, and kept the crew calm, all while maintaining her own composure. By the time the plane leveled out, the man was breathing more steadily, his life no longer in immediate danger. As Nina returned to her seat, the cabin still buzzing from the emergency, she could feel Mark's eyes on her. His earlier smugness had vanished, replaced by a visible unease. He shifted awkwardly in his seat, avoiding her gaze at first, then clearing his throat. "That was impressive," he finally muttered, his voice lacking its earlier arrogance. "I didn't expect. I mean, I'm sorry for the way I acted earlier." Nina glanced at him briefly, her expression unreadable. She wasn't looking for an apology, but his discomfort was clear. He seemed genuinely ashamed of his earlier behavior, no longer the dismissive man who had questioned her worth. Mark struggled to find the right words. "I guess I made some wrong assumptions about you." Nina nodded slightly but didn't immediately respond. Instead, she took a moment to let the weight of the situation settle. "It's not just about apologizing," she said softly but firmly. "It's about understanding why you felt the need to make those assumptions in the first place." Mark looked down, clearly reflecting on her words. He nodded slowly, acknowledging the deeper lesson. The tension between them dissolved, replaced by a quiet understanding as the flight continued. As the plane prepared for landing, the atmosphere between Nina and Mark had shifted entirely. Mark sat quietly, deep in thought, his earlier bravado completely gone. He glanced at her again, his expression one of quiet humility. "Thank you," he said, his voice softer now. "Not just for helping that man, but for making me realize something about myself. I have a lot to think about." Nina looked at him, offering a small, understanding smile. "It's never too late to start seeing things differently," she replied. As the plane touched down in Los Angeles, Mark gathered his belongings in silence, clearly lost in reflection. When the seatbelt sign turned off, he stood and turned to her one last time. "I'll try to be better," he said earnestly. "Thanks again, Dr. Harper." Nina nodded, watching as he walked away. As she stepped off the plane and into the bright California sunlight, she felt lighter. The incident hadn't just been about saving a life, it had been about breaking barriers, challenging assumptions, and planting the seeds of change. Walking through the airport, Nina knew that the world wasn't going to change overnight, but every small step mattered. Today, she had taken one more. Thank you for listening. See you in the next episode. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.